Look down at what you're wearing right now. A shirt, pants, maybe shoes, maybe layers. You put them on this morning without a single conscious thought. The way you breathe or blink. Automatic, invisible, just part of being human. But here is the thing nobody tells you. For most of human history, you didn't wear any of it. And the moment your ancestors first reached for something to cover their bodies, that moment changed everything. Not just how humans looked, but how humans thought, how humans survived, and how the entire social world you live in today was first stitched together. The real reason humans started wearing clothes has almost nothing to do with being cold. It is far stranger than that. Let's go back, way back. Around 3.3 million years ago, your earliest ancestors walked across the African savanna almost entirely naked. Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Australopithecus, all of them, bare skin, sunlight, wind, and they were fine. The human body at that point had already solved the heat problem. Evolutionary biologist Nina Jablonski at Penn State University spent decades studying human skin, and what she found overturns everything most people assume. Around 1.6 million years ago, your ancestors lost most of their body hair. Not because they needed to be warmer, because they needed to be cooler. Dense fur traps heat. And early humans were endurance hunters. They didn't run fast, but they could run for hours. Sweating through bare skin made them one of the most thermally efficient animals on the planet. Your naked body isn't a liability. It is a biological superpower that evolution spent over 1 million years perfecting. So if nakedness worked, why did your ancestors ever stop? The answer comes from a tiny insect. In 2011, anthropologist Mark Stoneking at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology published a study on lice, specifically on the genetic split between head lice and body lice. Body lice, the kind that live in clothing, are a distinct species from head lice. And the only reason body lice exist is because there were clothes for them to evolve into. By tracing the DNA mutation rate of body lice backward, Stoneking's team calculated that clothing lice diverged from head lice somewhere between 83,000 and 170,000 years ago. That is when humans started wearing enough clothing, consistently enough, for an entirely new parasite to evolve around it. Think about what that means. Lice became the world's first accidental record of fashion. And the timing is not a coincidence. It lines up almost exactly with something else happening to your ancestors 100,000 years ago. The climate was getting worse. Not just cold, volatile, erratic. Ice ages advancing and retreating across Europe and Asia. Your ancestors were pushing into new environments, northward into wind and snow, where bare skin alone was no longer enough. But here is where it gets strange, because even then, the evidence suggests clothing wasn't primarily about warmth. Archaeologist Ian Gilligan at the University of Sydney spent years studying the earliest known clothing artifacts, and what he found changes the story completely. The first garments weren't sophisticated insulating layers. They were small, symbolic, often decorative. Pierced shells worn around the neck. Ochre-dyed animal skins tied across the body not to cover the torso, but to signal something. Gilligan argues that the very first clothing was not thermal technology. It was social technology. It was a way of communicating identity, status, group membership. A way of saying, I belong to these people. I am not one of them. Your brain already knew, long before the first needle was threaded, that how you look shapes how you are treated. And this brings in something even deeper. Something that lives inside you right now, every day, whether you are aware of it or not. Psychologist Jonathan Turner at the University of California, Riverside has studied the emotional evolution of hominids. How complex social feelings developed as group sizes grew. Here is what his research shows. As early humans began living in larger groups, status became critical to survival. Who ate first? Who mated? Who was protected? Who was cast out? Your ancestors didn't have language the way you do. They couldn't explain their value to the group with words, but they could show it. And they could see it, instantly, at a glance, in what another person was wearing. Clothing didn't just keep your ancestors warm. It became a signal layer on top of the body itself, a broadcast. And once that signal layer existed, something remarkable happened. it became self-reinforcing. The more groups used appearance to signal status, the more pressure each individual felt to use appearance to communicate their value. And the more critical appearance became, the more sophisticated clothing became. Dyes, patterns, textures, ornamentation, each one a new channel of information about who you were and where you stood. The oldest known needle is 60,000 years old, found in a cave in South Africa. Bone, sharpened to a point finer than you might expect from a people you might assume were primitive. Whoever made that needle was not just solving a warmth problem. They were investing time and skill into appearance. They understood at some level that what you wear is part of what you are. By the time modern Homo sapiens spread out of Africa around 50,000 to 70,000 years ago, they brought clothing with them into every environment on Earth. Deserts, tundras, coastlines, forests, and in every culture that emerged, clothing immediately took on layer after layer of social meaning. You can find no human culture in the archaeological record, anywhere at any time, that treated clothing as purely functional. Every single one used it to signal something. Fertility, grief, power, purity, danger, belonging. The Inuit in the Arctic used clothing so sophisticated that modern survival engineers have spent decades trying to replicate it. Layered air pockets, waterproofed stitching, fur aligned with natural moisture-wicking channels, and still haven't fully matched the performance. But even the Inuit, where survival literally depended on thermal efficiency, decorated their garments. Embroidery, colored trim, patterns that identified family and clan. The warmth was necessary. The decoration was non-negotiable. Warmth and status were never separate categories. They were always tangled together. And now, here is the part that might make you pause. Because you are still doing exactly this. Right now, today. Research by social psychologist Adam Galinsky at Columbia Business School has shown that what you wear changes not just how other people perceive you, but how you perceive yourself. In one of his studies, people who wore a white lab coat described as a doctor's coat performed measurably better on attention and focus tasks than those who wore street clothes, or those who wore the same coat but were told it belonged to a painter. The coat was identical. The meaning assigned to it changed cognitive performance. Your brain still reads clothing as information, constantly, automatically, the way your ancestors read the status signals of their tribe. You check what someone is wearing before you fully hear what they're saying. You decide in milliseconds whether a stranger is safe or threatening, high status or low, part of your world or outside it, based almost entirely on what covers their body. And you do the same calculation on yourself every morning, standing in front of a mirror or digging through a closet. You are not just choosing warmth. You are choosing who you are going to be today. That is not vanity. That is 170,000 years of social survival technology running in your prefrontal cortex before your first cup of coffee. The lice figured it out before anthropologists did. Your ancestors didn't reach for that first piece of animal skin because they were shivering. They reached for it because they understood something so fundamental it never needed to be said aloud, that what you show the world shapes how the world sees you. And you, right now, in whatever you're wearing, are still doing the exact same thing. Look down at what you're wearing. You didn't just put on clothes this morning. You told the world who you are.